Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, and thanks for being here. I'm glad to see you all today. Hope you're all having a great day and a good conference and learning a lot, but also having some time to enjoy seeing things and doing things. After all, it is Orlando, the vacation capital of the universe, as they say. So, my name is Mike Norris. I live in Tallahassee, Florida, and I am happy to be here with you today. I work with an organization called Civic Influencers. A little bit about me and my background. I've been doing this kind of young person-based civic engagement work almost my entire career. I used to work with an organization called Florida Campus Compact. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but Campus Compact works specifically within higher education institutions to work with their civic engagement efforts in higher ed. But now I'm working with Civic Influencers, and this presentation is exactly what it says there on the screen. What our organization is all about is trying to amp up or increase the civic power of young people. Specifically today, we're going to talk about young people with disabilities. Moreover, we work with young people in general. So a little bit about our organization. Civic Influencers is different from a lot of, there are other groups that work in this space that do the same type of work we do. We are different in that we are the only one who really uses a lot of research, evidence-based, data-driven knowledge to really amplify the work that we do. So we use ongoing research, innovation, evidence-based voter engagement, and then this is, I think, the real important thing. Specifically, we work to organize and advocate and educate youth, immigrants, Black, Indigenous, Hispanic, disabled, youth of color for this, a more equitable and inclusive democracy. Regardless of what your politics are, if you kind of read the newspaper or listen to the news every day, I think we would agree that the state of democracy in our country is at a kind of precarious place. And it's almost one of those things where almost anything can happen. Welcome, come in. Hello.
Hello.
I'm glad to have you join us today.
Nice being here.
So what we want to do is we go at this work kind of relentlessly but with a lot of hopefulness, really a lot of energy and joy. So that we can try and keep democracy working for future generations. So, you know, our core values would be innovation, equity, inclusion, power, because we want to amp up power for all young people. We think that young people really are the future of democracy in this country. So I'm going to stop there for a minute because it always is better for me if I kind of know who's in the room. So, and since we've got what I would call a manageable group, a good but manageable group, take a minute, if you will, and just tell me your name, where you're from, and kind of what brought you to this session. Who wants to start?
Okay. My name is Jordan Ramirez. I am 28, going on 29 in September. And I came to this because ever since the past few years, I've been more engaged into learning about like from really progressive people on the left and also from like non-partisan news. I try to separate myself from the noise and also learn about what it means to be telling the truth instead of just barely telling the truth. That's why
I understand exactly what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jordan.
Yes.
Okay.
My name is Cecilia Camacho. I'm Jordan's mom, and I'm here because he's here. He selected this talk to come to, and I also wanted to know more about your organization and what you do.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So Jordan and Cecilia.
Yes.
I am Danelle Charles. I'm 19 years old, and I am a public health researcher at the University of South Florida. I'm passionate about research related to women and children with disabilities, and so that's what brought me here.
Great. I love USF. Some of my best friends have been students and teachers at USF. So glad you're here. And in the back.
Hi, my name's Brianna. I'm 23 and I'm from Tampa, and I came here as Miss Wheelchair Florida. I'm promoting my platform, which is all about how horses help people with disabilities, and I wanted to come to this talk because I'm super passionate about advocating for this disability community, so I wanted to learn more about how I could do that.
Thank you, and thank you for being here, and congratulations. We
Thank
got
you.
a celebrity in our midst. Miss Wheelchair Florida, that's excellent.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm her mom. I'm Gabriela, and I follow her everywhere. So.
That's commendable. Thank you. Well, thank you both for choosing to come here. So let's talk a little bit about the issue. What is the issue at hand? Last year, lawmakers in our country introduced more than 400 voter suppression laws across 49 states, signed into law in 19 states. And what those did, they limited early and mail-in voting. They put more restrictions for voter IDs. They allowed for fewer ballot drop boxes, and they banned a lot of mobile polling locations. Now, again, regardless of whether you're kind of on the left or the right, anything that prohibits people from being able to participate in democracy is an issue. It's a problem. That's kind of what we want to help young people have a voice to address, so that some of, regardless of 400 suppression laws in 49 states with 19 laws already on the books, and others will probably be voted on in the days ahead, that definitely, I think, we would agree would create an issue. So, what can we do? Civic Influencers utilizes innovation, this is what I was saying a minute ago, and kind of a data-driven approach to empower marginalized young people, the disability community, but really any kind of marginalized population in our country, of which there are many. We want to amplify their voices through voting, engaging with their communities and or college campuses for a more inclusive and equitable democracy. That theme's going to come back a lot today. So, as far as the disability community is concerned, you probably know the name Justin Dart. Justin Dart was the co-founder of the American Association for People with Disabilities, and this is one of his quotes: "Vote as if your life depends on it, because it does." A lot of what is happening depends on I was telling Jordan a few minutes ago, in our organization, we don't tell people how to vote, but we want them to be informed about what the issues are, and we want them to participate in an unrestricted way so that they have the ability to vote. The words of Justin Dart are part of the values for engagement of young people. We want to create that kind of a world where people with disabilities have access and can implement their own civic power. So, why do we talk about disability awareness within this context? 50 million Americans with disabilities. Employment rates, 31. These are relatively, these statistics have a little bit of age on them, but they kind of date back to 2005, but I think the percentages are not that far off. 31.8% of working age Americans are working with disabilities. And 78.3% of working age Americans without disabilities are working. So it's an interesting little juxtaposition there. So let's talk a little bit about access. Access, not a one-shot deal. Disability accessibility, disability inclusion in a narrow sense, the technical requirements that allow participation. We want to think about that when it comes to like ramps, doors, lighting, meeting room, access to information. We want to make sure that every community, every voting precinct is able to welcome and celebrate the participation of people with disabilities. And that's kind of what one of our goals that we want to achieve. We want to see that accessibility applied within the voting and engagement kind of infrastructure, so that everyone has kind of equal access. Did you know that the average age of the American poll worker right now is 72 years old? We have an effort in 2022 and moving into 2024 where we're trying to enlist and help train at least 50,000 new poll worker volunteers that will be under the age of 30. Wish us luck. That's one of our initiatives. So ableism, I mean, a lot of this you that are kind of in and immersed and working in the disability community are very aware. A significant number of polling places are at faith-based institutions. Faith-based institutions are not always required to comply with ADA requirements, and that is a problem. And which is why, some people like the fact that faith-based institutions are used. It is a problem though when those institutions, when those locations are not compliant with the ADA. We did have back in 2020 some concessions or some things, some inclusive things that happened because of the pandemic that I think, in an ideal world would just stay in place. But we'll have to see how some of that plays out. I know in the state of Georgia, their bill that they passed this past spring made a lot of changes that had been allowed during the pandemic were taken away and restricted again. So we just want to we want to be sure that everyone is able. And so what are Civic Influencers? What is our organization doing to fight ableism? We're creating materials and guidance on accessing civic power in accessible formats. We're trying to train young people on inclusion and engaging with young people to help join us in that work. We want to be sure that they have a good core knowledge of what the law is. And we want to organize trainings and workshops to ensure that the disability community really is included. So let me stop there. I've talked a lot about the disability community, which, as I say, you guys are probably actually a lot more informed than I. What comments, questions might you have on any of this? Jordan, I know it's on the tip of your tongue. Go right ahead.
Okay. So I know that I mentioned that I've been trying to keep myself engaged in what's been going on. So I know that there has been, I've been concerned about this one. The election police force that Governor DeSantis signed.
Yes.
That
bill
to me
that was passed this past spring.
Yeah, that's my concern about how do we ensure that these young voters that want to be there don't feel as if they were intimidated, or what can they do to make sure that they don't feel like they're trying to be excluded from this?
Jordan, that is a great question. That is a valid concern, and it is very insightful. I'm glad to know that you are thinking about that. Mm-hmm. Here's my concern as I think about it and look at it. We kind of know what the law did. Mm-hmm. It established this kind of force of people to oversee the process. We have yet, until the primary in Florida in August and then the general election in November, we have yet to actually see how that's going to play out. And so we don't necessarily know exactly what we're up against. Hopefully nothing, possibly a lot, but I think that's one reason I'm kind of looking forward already to the Florida primary election in August, because I'm curious to see how that's going to play out. And then we've got this little tiny window of time between August and November to try and address any problems that might come up in the state of Florida. But insightful to be thinking about that at this time. And that shows that you're really knowledgeable about what's going on, especially in the state of Florida, which, you know, Florida politics is always exciting. Always exciting. Okay, so our kind of civic influencer creed. This is the, in a minute I'm going to talk about a program where we actually work with young people across the country, not just in Florida, but in all 50 states. And the young people that we work with, this is kind of the idea that we want them to adopt, that they are concerned about issues that impact their people, their campus, their community, and the land in which they are from. They're concerned about the state of democracy and want to be a part of a national movement that is not afraid to stand up for voting rights. They want to grow and learn. They want to change systems that have intentionally left people out of the process, and they're dedicated to those core values that I had on the slide earlier of diversity, equity, inclusion. We want to be able to involve everyone. You know, we the people is everybody. We the people is not an elite group. It's really everybody. So the Civic Influencers team, this is what I told you I was going to talk about in a minute. Right now we are enlisting young people across the country for really the next 3 terms of service, one which starts in just a little over a week, kind of a summer term, a fall semester, and a spring semester. We're looking for young people who are concerned about their communities, concerned about democracy, want to have an opportunity to do some work, and we provide them an opportunity to have some resources, have some one-on-one training, have some group training, give them opportunities to do some activities and events within their communities or on their college campuses, and teach them through one of our corporate partners, the Tableau Corporation. We teach them kind of how to use data to tell a story. The Tableau Corporation is a data visualization company. We have a partnership with them that allows us to have free access to all of their online training tools. And so we ask all of our civic influencer young people to take some training in how to use data to tell a story. And we have, at Civic Influencers, we actually have an entire data research team that is constantly surveying, polling, researching, tracking, so that all of our data is up to date on what's going on within various communities, the disability community being a huge part of that, and also within states, so that we can kind of see where the problems are and see how we can make a difference. So we do pay a stipend to the young people who are doing that. You know, this gets a little into the weeds, but I can send you all of this information, anyone who's interested in it, but exactly what our civic influencers that we work with and that we enlist for this semester-long stipended program. They work on 3 activities that will engage young people ages 18 to 30 in their community or on their college campus, whichever is better for them. And those can be voter education events, voter registration events, get out the vote events. We really look for our young people to be as creative as they can possibly be. We ask them to think about a systemic change project. So what do we mean by that? Let's say we were all students at USF for just a minute. So what's going on at USF that we could change in a systemic kind of way that would make it easier for everyone to have access to education, voter registration, and get out the vote kind of things. So perhaps we could work with our administration to make our student ID cards compliant to where they were also recognized by the state as voter ID cards. You would think that would be so simple, but we had one of our students who worked on that very specific project at Florida State University for 3 years, and finally this year made it happen. And the only thing that it required was adding the signature, the student's signature to the card. Everything else was there, but the card didn't have the student signature on it. They finally figured it out, and beginning this year, every Florida State University ID card will be compliant as a voter a voter ID card. That's just an example of what I'm talking about when I say systemic change. What is a system that seems like it would be so simple, but it really is kind of a barrier? Other students of ours have worked with their administrations on college campuses to where when they come in as an 18-year-old freshman and they register for classes, registering to vote is part of registering for class. You register to vote, and then the system opens up to the window where you can register for class. It's just a systemic kind of thing that makes it easier to participate. So, 3 activities: a systemic change project. We ask our students to distribute in their community a survey. It's an online survey. Send the link to all of your social media friends. Pretty simple. And then this is the training that I was talking about a minute ago through our partner with Tableau. It's a module called Data Literacy for All, but I wish it were called Using Data to Tell a Story, because that's really what it is. And then they meet with one of our staff people on a regular basis about once every 2 or 3 weeks-ish. It just kind of depends on what they need and how things are going. And then they do a final report at the end of their semester. So for that program, that kind of semester or 4-month-long program, we pay a $500 stipend to as many students as we can enlist. Right now for the summer, we are trying our best to enlist 1,500 students across the country to participate in that program. And as of today, I think we're at about 800. So in the next 2 weeks, I could hire 700 more students if I could find them.
So
Yes.
they have to be students?
No, they do not have to be students.
Okay.
They have to be between 18 and 29.
Okay.
That's the only stipulation. And if they, and that's why we kind of talk about campus and community. Students and it's easier for them to do the program if they work on their campus. But if you are not in school, if you're a young person that chose not to go to college, we still want you to be part of this program. You just work within your community, or kind of almost within your, what is your circle of friends or circle of influence within your community. So no, do not have to be students. This is just kind of another visualization of the same thing. These are the same kinds of activities that I talked about. I told you we're trying to hire 1,500 students. We do have these states that are highlighted are what we have kind of prioritized as states that we would really like to work in this summer and this fall. Now, just looking at that map, I bet Jordan's going to know the answer to this question right off. Why do you think we chose those states?
Because,
We've already talked about it.
Okay, because you can elect it's local elections, governor elections, Senate elections, and of course, roles like Secretary of State or Secretary of, within those states for a reason, because we need those states to ensure that we don't lose our democracy.
Thank you. And that's exactly right. But the one other thing about, remember when we talked about the states that had passed and now have on the books voter suppression laws? These are those states. And that's why we have targeted those states. I mean, we'll hire students from any of the 50, but we're trying to hire a few more in those target states, only because, like we talked about with Governor DeSantis's new law, we just don't yet know how these things are going to play out, and so we just want to try and be ready, for lack of a better word. So, what resources do we provide? We do have a toolkit that, and again, you might be really interested in this, and I can send it to you if you'll give me your contact information. That is an election accessibility toolkit. It's a lot of resources. It's a big long Google Doc that really help with disability advocacy when it comes to democracy and voting. We have an Aapd Voter Resource Center. All of these resources are available, and I can get to you any resource that you would like to have. I can also send you a copy of this slide deck if you'd like to.
If we can get a copy of that as well.
Yeah. In a minute, I just need to get an email address, and when I get back in the office, Monday or Tuesday, I will just send you a copy of this slide deck. So, questions, comments, statements, opinions. I love conversation. Yes.
Okay. I know that I also have been keeping track of what's been happening in the redistricting level.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
you're really into this stuff. I'm loving this.
Okay, so I read about the every year since, like, that ends with an O, there's always a redistricting based on the census of how many people are in this state and also whether they gain or lose a seat.
Correct. Every 10 years.
Yes.
What happens is every 10 years there is a census where everybody in the country hopefully gets counted.
Yes.
Now, what a lot of people don't realize when they think about the census always happens a year prior to congressional redistricting, because the census counts people, it reshuffles all the numbers of population, states that have grown, states that have shrunk, and then following the census, every state's congressional distribution numbers can do one of the three things. They can stay the same, they can be reduced, or they can be increased. This cycle, Florida gained one congressional seat. And so that redistricting process, which is still right now in the courts in Florida, because the legislature passed a map, then the governor vetoed it, and then the governor drew a map, and the legislature passed that, and then it went to the courts, and then the courts threw it out, and it's, who knows, they got to decide soon, because the election's getting closer and closer. But we don't know how that's going to play out. There are states that lost congressional districts. There are states that gained congressional districts. People, in my estimation, don't think about the census in terms of how it's going to play a year down the road in their representation in Washington. Okay? You know, sometimes people think, oh, I don't have time to fill out that census form. Don't bother me with that. It's not important. Nobody cares if I'm here or not. And the balance of Congress gets shifted because of the census. That's how it happens. So you're right. The census is taken every 10 years. And then redistricting follows the census.
Yes, thank you.
What else you got?
Okay. Regarding how you become influenced, because I know that, in the Latino community, there is disinformation regarding Spanish-speaking viewers or listeners and how they get their information. Is there a way that Latino viewers would have to figure out how to avoid disinformation and how they can be well informed, like for any Latino voter or any Latino community in general?
That is a great question that I wish I knew the answer to.
Okay.
I do not know what the answer to that issue is. I mean, disinformation is an issue with everyone, but I think it probably is a bigger issue with people who are foreign language speakers or are in the process of learning English, or anyone that's having that is not a fluent English speaker. I think disinformation becomes a much bigger issue and a bigger problem for. And you know, that's one of the things I personally think makes America great. I have a son who lives in Washington, D.C., and every time we chat, he tells me, one of the things he tells me is one of the main reasons he lives in D.C., loves living in D.C., is that he can walk down the street and just in the noise around him hear 20 different languages being spoken. And I think that's kind of a beautiful thing. That's kind of the melting pot that America is. I mean, when we were created, we had people that came from Germany and from Italy and from Spain and from England and from Portugal, and then our forefathers brought over on ships people from Africa, and so we have this kind of melting pot of things. I think diversity is part of our strength. I know not everybody agrees with me that, but that's kind of my take on it. But the question of disinformation, I think, Jordan, can make a great kind of systemic change kind of project, to do some research on that and to create some resources that might help mitigate the disinformation within a local community, you know. And I think that would be a great kind of a project. In fact, I'm going to remember that because I think that's a great project for somebody to work on. What else you got for me? Questions, comments? I know. Yeah.
My concern is for the deaf and hard of hearing community, and because one of the biggest challenges that they face is receiving information and being updated and informed because of the lack of closed captioning and information that's being an election is happening right now in certain states.
I think that the answer to that, again, I apologize, I don't have a definitive answer because it varies so much from state to state, even community to community. Even within the state of Florida, there are communities that are much more aggressive with making sure that every accessibility is provided for, whether that is wheelchair accessibility or whether that is hearing impaired accessibility. I am not aware that Florida has like voting systems specifically for hearing impaired people. You may know, I don't, if we do or not. I would hope that we do. Both hearing impaired and visually impaired. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say hi. I am part of the Access the Vote Florida campaign, so it's part of the Rev Up.
Tell me your name.
Maddie Crowley. I don't know how familiar you aren't with Rev Up or Access the Vote Florida, but yes, it's a part of, I don't know if it's technically law, I'm not good at legal language, but yes, all counties have to have accessible voting options for folks, like as of this election cycle. So there's 3 different accessible voting machines for either folks who, need to use text to speech, for folks that maybe low vision or blind, ASL interpretation, things like that. So yeah, I wanted to come today too to see if y'all were in connection with Rev Up chapters, and if not, I think that would be a really cool connection to make.
I would love to chat with you for a bit.
Yeah.
We are not within the state of Florida.
Okay.
There are probably some states that we work in where we are. You missed it at the beginning. Our organization we work nationwide. We're a small 501c3 nonprofit with a staff of about 30, literally spread across the country. The only time we have a staff meeting is by Zoom because I'm the only staff member that lives in Florida. We have 2 in Texas, New Jersey, North Carolina, Colorado, California, Oregon. We're kind of everywhere, and I know that in some states, this is why one of our priorities for the period from 2022 to 2024 is a lot of very concerted, specific work within the disability community. And that's why we would really love to have the opportunity in Florida and across the country to work with young people in our Civic Influencers program, because we figure we can help them and they can help us learn things that we need to know to make our organization better.
Yep, definitely. If anybody wants to learn more about Accessible Florida, I'm not taking away or trying to plug or anything like that, but we can chat too, because we have a coalition of folks in Florida, and we're also creating a series of videos about all of these accessible voting machines that are available in Florida. We also have a website and social media and all the rest, so we'll connect and
Yeah,
we can discuss information.
I would love to.
Awesome.
That would be great.
Great.
What else? Any other questions, comments? So my question to you is, how many of you know a young person, 18 to 29 years old, who might love to be in our program? Other than Jordan, I'm going to already enlist him. He's already in. I just have to send him the form to sign. If you do, it's really simple. CivicInfluencers.org, which is not there. This is me, by the way. But CivicInfluencers.org is chewing my, I didn't even put my, let me fix that. I just realized my email's not on that slide. I don't know why, but it's not. Yeah. All you have to do is go to civicinfluencers.org and click on the link that says Civic Influencers application. Fill that out, and it'll come to me like by magic, as those things do in this day and age. If you have questions, comments, anything, please feel free to get in touch with me. I would love to talk further. And I definitely hope we can connect. If not today, we'll get on a call next week maybe, or something would be fantastic. And you know, let's get our civic power within the youth disabled community really amped up and going everywhere we can go.